All right, let's dive into an idea that's so big, so controversial, it literally changed the world. It sparked revolutions, built nations, and, believe it or not, it still shapes our world in ways you might not even realize. We're talking about Marxism.
So to really get what Marxism is all about, you have to start with a huge question. I mean, what if you could boil down all of human history, every single war, every empire, every social movement, to just one single driving force? Well, for the philosopher Karl Marx, the answer to that huge question was actually one simple, powerful word: conflict. His whole argument was that deep down, at the very root of our societies, there is a constant, fundamental struggle going on.
Okay, so what does that actually mean, to see the entire world through this lens of conflict? Let's break down the core idea.
At its absolute heart, Marxism is this. It's the theory that societies don't just kind of drift along peacefully. No, he argued they move forward, they change, because of a constant battle between different social classes. And this class struggle isn't just some side story, it's the actual engine driving all of history.
So if class struggle is the engine, who exactly is in the driver's seat? Or maybe a better question is, who's fighting over the wheel? Well, in the modern world of capitalism, Marx said it comes down to two major groups.
On one side, you've got the bourgeoisie. These are the owners, the ones who control what Marx called the means of production. So think factories, land, machinery, all that stuff. And on the other side, you've got the proletariat. These are the workers. They don't own any of that stuff. The only thing they have to sell is their own labor. The real conflict kicks in with something called surplus value. So, say a worker makes a chair that's worth $10, but they only get paid $5 in wages. That extra $5, that's the surplus value, and it goes right into the owner's pocket as profit. For Marx, that wasn't just business, that was exploitation, plain and simple.
And you've got to understand, this isn't just some disagreement over a paycheck. It's a deep, structural conflict baked into the system itself. It's about who has the power, who controls all the resources, and ultimately, who gets to write the rules. For Marx, this basic opposition is the force that has shaped every single society throughout time.
He and his writing partner, Friedrich Engels, spelled this out perfectly in their most famous pamphlet, the Communist Manifesto. I mean, they put it right there on the table. The history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles. They were saying, look, it doesn't matter if you're talking about masters and slaves in Rome or lords and serfs in the Middle Ages, it's always been a story of the oppressor versus the oppressed.
Okay, so if society is stuck in this endless loop of conflict, what's the endgame? I mean, is there a way out? Well, Marx wasn't just about pointing out the problems. He actually laid out a revolutionary path to what he saw as the ultimate solution.
You saw it happening in 3 stages. Stage 1 is where we are now, capitalism. He actually saw it as a necessary step. But then comes stage 2, a massive revolution where the working class takes over and sets up what he called the dictatorship of the proletariat. Now, that phrase sounds intense, but it's really important to know he didn't mean a single all-powerful dictator. He went a temporary state run by the working class for the working class, whose main job is to get rid of private ownership and build a socialist society. And that leads to the final goal, stage 3, full communism. This is the utopia, a society with no classes, no private property, and no state at all. A place where, in theory, oppression is finally gone for good.
And that's a really key detail that gets missed a lot. In Marx's theory, the government, the state, it's basically just a tool that the ruling class uses to stay in power. So once you get rid of class divisions, what do you need the tool for? You don't. The state itself becomes obsolete. It's supposed to just wither away, leaving behind a community that governs itself.
Now, this whole idea of a revolution and a state that disappears, it's actually part of a much bigger, grander theory of history. It's a way of looking at everything through an economic lens. He called it historical materialism. The easiest way to think about it is like a building. A society's economy, you know, how it makes stuff and who gets what, that's the foundation. Everything else, and I mean everything, its government, its laws, its culture, its art, its philosophy, that's all the superstructure that gets built on top of that economic foundation.
And if you look back at history this way, Marx saw a clear progression. You start with primitive communism in ancient tribes, where everything was shared. That gives way to slave societies, which then get replaced by feudalism. And feudalism eventually creates the conditions for capitalism. For him, each one of these systems contained the seeds of its own destruction, leading to a new conflict and a whole new way of organizing the world.
So, that's the theory. But what happens when these ideas stop being just words on a page and actually hit the real world?
Well, the impact was, and still is, absolutely massive.
You know, Marxist theories didn't just stay in libraries. They became a real-world inspiration, a guidebook for some of the biggest revolutions of the 20th century. We're talking about the Russian Revolution, the Chinese Revolution, the Cuban Revolution, all led by people who were trying to put his ideas into practice and totally remake their countries.
And what's really fascinating is that Marxism wasn't some static, unchanging doctrine. It was constantly being adapted and rethought by other major figures. You have Vladimir Lenin in Russia, Mao Zedong in China, Antonio Gramsci in Italy. They all took Marx's core ideas and molded them to fit their own unique situations, which gave us whole new schools of thought like Marxism-Leninism and Maoism.
And this is where we get to the really complex legacy of it all. I mean, you absolutely cannot deny its influence on everything from politics to sociology. But at the same time, you have to grapple with the fact that it became linked to governments that were incredibly powerful, statist, and often totalitarian, which of course is the complete opposite of that stateless utopia Marx himself wrote about.
So that really leaves us with the central debate that's still going on today. Was Marxism a genuine theory for human liberation, a way to finally end exploitation? Or did it have some kind of fatal flaw baked into it, making it an unavoidable blueprint for oppression? That is the massive, powerful question at the heart of Marx's legacy.